also now we have native, sorry, so I should not follow up on the conversation before I started the recording. Now we started the recording. Welcome everyone. So this is our December edition of the OpenLineage monthly meeting. And so I'll start with the few things. So reminder that the meeting is recorded, and I'll post the notes and the recording link to the LFAI and data OpenLineage wiki. And I'll start, we'll start the meeting with doing a roll call. And so we'll do, for people who haven't been in this meeting before, we'll do a quick round of introduction, right? Of just your name, you know, why you're here, what you're interested to get from this meeting, just quickly. So I can start. I'm Julien. I'm the lead for the OpenLineage project. I'm also the CTO of DataKin. And I'm facilitating the meeting today. And I'll do the namings from my screen. So the next person is Ross, based on that.
Hello, I'm Ross Turk. I'm a VP Marketing at DataKin.
And responsible for the OpenLineage logo.
Yes, yes, and the website.
John.
I'm muted. I'm John. I do support and whatever else he's doing at that DataKin.
Mandy.
Hi everybody, I am the lead for the Azure project, and we've been working together to use OpenLineage to integrate Azure and Marquez.
Shrikant.
Hey everybody, Shrikant Venkat from Microsoft. I think I know at least some of the folks here on the call. They worked in the past. Mandy and I worked on, prior to Azure, the project called Open Metadata and Governance, which is now Azure over time. So been working in this space for a while with Apache Atlas for a long time, Apache Ranger, lots of other things on the open source ecosystem. More recently here at Microsoft, we are looking at how we can leverage OpenLineage for Azure Purview. And that is part of the focus of what Will and others are going to cover today. So we are getting more active in the space, and we want to be able to contribute and to be able to further along, all of the wonderful stuff that's happening here in this community.
Awesome. Maciej.
Hello, I'm Maciej. I work at Getting Data, and I'm OpenLineage committer.
Minkyu.
Hello, I'm Minkyu, and I'm a software developer at DataKin, and yeah.
Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a software engineer at DataKin and Marquez contributor.
Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael, developer relations at DataKin, and technically I'm a Marquez contributor as well.
And other Michael. Sorry.
Hey, Michael, I'm a staff engineer at DataKin, work heavily on the OpenLineage, especially Spark library, as well as Marquez.
Willie.
Hello, I'm Willie. I'm the TSC member and co-creator of Marquez. Been involved with OpenLineage since the beginning, and also work at DataKin.
Will.
Hey everybody, my name is Will. I am a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. I have been working with Apache Atlas and our product Azure Purview for well over a year now. And I had the exciting opportunity to work with OpenLineage for a hackathon that we did recently, which we'll talk about later on. and I've been super happy with the experience with OpenLineage, and very excited to be talking to you all today.
Mark?
Hi everyone, I'm Mark. I'm with Microsoft, working on the project with Will as sort of the technical PM. Nice to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you. Oh, Zoom reordered the windows. Should concern different window. Travis.
Did Travis sound far away from anybody else, or was it just me?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I heard something or not. There was something really low.
Like Travis, you were like miles away from your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My Zoom settings aren't set up. Travis from Microsoft, working on a project with Mark and Will, and I'm here just to give Will my support. You know.
Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. And so just the next slide is just a reminder for people on how we communicate. You know, you can join the OpenLineage Slack. There's a mailing list, but I think most communication happen on Slack, and notes from the online meetings end up on the wiki as well. So the agenda for today, we have 3 main topics, and then there's a no open discussion section. So feel free, if there's a topic that's not on the agenda and you want to discuss, we can easily add it to the open discussion section. First, Mandy is going to talk a bit about the SPDX header, which is an easier way to deal with license headers. And then we'll have a presentation from Will, Mark, and Shrikant about the Azure Purview OpenLineage integration. And then I had a short topic about adding a logging backend for OpenLineage. So on that, anyone wanted to add to this section or not? Then we're good. So Mandy, I'll go to the next slide and I'll let you cover this part.
Okie doke. All right. So this is not a big topic, but it does help organizations that are consuming the OpenLineage software. And it's how we label our files to show exactly which license those files are cover. So normally we put in quite a big block comment that describes the license content. And those can get damaged or, apart from the fact they take up quite a bit of room. So there is a standard called SPDX, which is all about being able to automate the creation of software bill of materials. So it's around automatically analyzing license, ownership, additional terms and conditions around a particular set of software. So what we can do is, rather than have the full license put in the top of every file, we just put this SPDX license identifier, the license we're using, in the top line of the file. And then you have the full licenses in the license file at the top of the GitHub repository. And then from then onwards, it's possible for code scanners to pick up that license so much more simply. And so the lawyers and things don't have to scan all the text. So that's the proposal, that we start using these tags rather than the full license description at the top of each of our files. Ta-da!
So yes, and so basically, instead of putting this big header, we use this shorter thing.
And then you can use things like RAT and other license checkers, and they just pick up the short description and work with them. So it's as I say, it doesn't make much difference to the project itself, but it makes it a lot easier for other projects and companies that are consuming the software to allow them to do their automatic license checking and bill of materials.
Yeah, I think that, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer that we should use this. I don't know if anyone had like a different opinion or Also, I'm assuming there's some plugins, build plugins that we can use for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we use this in Azure, but we are a Maven project, and so there is definitely a wrap plugin that we use. I'm assuming there's exactly the same for Gradle, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, usually there's an easy port of Maven plugin.
And this is getting, you know, more and more take up across the Linux Foundation. So Linux Foundation initiated the work. It's now at ISO to become an international standard. So you know, it's not that we're sort of doing something that's a little bit hokey. This is actually becoming best practice around open source software. So there's probably, if we agree that this is the right thing to do, then the next decision is, do we do a big change and change all the files, or do we start working through module by module, or just as things change? I would recommend doing a big change.
That's what I would recommend. Just one PR that introduces a new format, and then everyone use it from goes from there. I would love to do the same for Marquez. So whatever we decide here for OpenLineage, it would be great to also adopt it in Marquez as well.
Another good thing would be to actually, so there's not like a linter or link check or anything that's validates that the license is referenced on every file. So I think updating the build check to make sure that license is always included in new source files that are created.
Yeah. As I say, I know how to do it in Maven. I don't know how to do it with Gradle.
Yeah, I suspect there's an existing thing.
I'm sure it's exactly. I'm sure you just a quick search on the internet will exactly how to do it.
RAT is an Apache project, right? And a bunch of Apache Foundation project that use Gradle as well for building. So I'm pretty sure, yeah, that we're going to find.
And this you know, it works in XML files, JSON files, all those things. It's just a comment, and it's just picking up the text and the comments. So you can put it across the files. I mean, in Nigeria, we also put a CC 4.0 for the text. So our code is Apache 2.0, and the and all of the documentation is the Creative Commons 4.0 license, which pretty much just says attribution. That's the only requirement. But it means, because there's always a little bit of a weird overlap between software licensing and copyright. So we just always put both in all of our files. So there's no question.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm also in favor. It's kind of more the Big Bang approach. Like possibly, you know, we do one on the Java side that builds with Gradle, and one on the Python side that builds with something else, because probably the plugin is different or the tool is different. But otherwise, you know, so possibly we have two passes to make it in both type of files. But otherwise, I think, yeah, that's the right approach, right? You want to rip the Band-Aid, and it's kind of whatever PR is in progress, we'll have to suffer this. And then it's done, and we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think we are all in favor, and this is, we can, like, if you're against, say nay now, but otherwise, I think we consider this is adopted. Yep.
Okay,
so
great.
to do, someone will create an issue to track this.
Yeah, and I did a quick check. Look, so we use Spotless, so it looks like there's a license header check that you can enable, and I think that would ensure anytime you open up a PR or try to commit locally, it would fail the commit. So looks good.
Makes sense.
Cool. Would it automatically add the license for you if you do Spotless apply?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I would think so.
My research was very brief.
I would assume so. I've used plugins before we do that with Maven. So I would assume, like, Spotless usually does that. So there's no reason it wouldn't do this. Sounds good. So let's, unless there's more question, we can move to the next topic, which is the exciting presentation about the Azure Purview integration.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I think, so we've got myself, Mark, Srikanth, and Travis on the line. I think Srikanth, you wanted to say a couple words about Purview and just in general about open source at Microsoft, I think, and then I'll launch into the more details of what we accomplished and how we accomplished it, and how easy it was to get it done because of the amazingness of OpenLineage, right? So let me hand it over to Srikanth to kind of talk more about Purview in general.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Will, for the lead up to that. So as you folks might be aware, Azure Purview is a metadata and governance platform across Microsoft. We were in public preview, extended public preview starting last December, and the service is one of the newest in Azure that is generally available. The goal is to be able to provide end-to-end data governance services across wherever the customer's data is, whether it's on-prem, cloud, multi-cloud. So we cover AWS, GCP, as well as Azure, and a variety of on-premise sources. So our interest in this area was peaked because the foundation for Azure Purview is another one of my favorite projects, Apache Atlas as the foundation. So all of our interfaces are Apache Atlas compatible. And we were looking for ways to fill the gaps with various aspects of lineage coming from a variety of these systems. And we came across OpenLineage a few months back, and we've been talking to Julien and other folks here on the call around how we can kind of think about adopting and contributing and extending this out so that we can have that open platform, open ecosystem foundation that Azure Purview is based on. So today we have full Apache Atlas compatibility for a variety of things, and we are looking at other, OpenLineage and other projects in terms of being able to extend and provide that footprint for Purview. So it's the newest in the Azure sort of space, and there's quite a bit of momentum, all the way down from our top execs, like Satya talks about it. That pretty much you might have noticed at every one of our public events, wherever he can drop this. It's a very, very high visibility in terms of what the investments in governance, and in terms of being able to have this pan Microsoft as well as pan data estate for the customer's view on governance, with the first part of it being the cataloging piece to pull all that information into like a foundation like Apache Atlas, and then have our own cloud optimized way to give you that capability on that. So that's where we're at. It's it's a pretty exciting thing for us because we now have the ability to augment what we are doing with other other connectors, etc., that we are building, and then to be able to do this in a more uniform fashion is something that we want to really be able to leverage. So as an example, a couple of the things that we feel are going to be very key for OpenLineage around, for example, the operational lineage portion, which is not something that we capture currently that well in other systems. So we're looking at those aspects of being able to leverage the OpenLineage extensions and the footprint and advance that in terms of our open platforms and extensibility at Microsoft. So we have actually raised this profile with our open source program offices, etc., within Microsoft. So this going to be more stuff that on the Microsoft side that we'll be doing with this community. So this is just the beginning for us. So it's great to meet everybody and get introduced. And we thought we'll first talk about our to kind of prove this point that we can leverage this and be able to extend this within the Microsoft ecosystem. We have our annual hackathon that usually happens in October. So Will, Mark, and I, and a bunch of us, we kind of thought it'd be a good way to kind of introduce our Microsoft folks around who are working on Purview and related spaces to this project, and to be able to show some quick value. So we had a very successful hackathon project, and that's primarily what we'll be talking about. And outcomes from there have led to some really good stuff that Will and team have put PRs for in terms of data breaks and other pieces. So I'll let those folks cover all the details. So just wanted to kind of give this brief introduction that Microsoft is looking at this very actively. We are we're wanting to do more in this area, and we'll be contributing more and more in the space.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shrikant. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Okay, can you, Julian, stop sharing, and then I want to try to share my screen so I can go through the full-on design.
Let's go. Yeah, here we go.
All right. I'm going to hit the button, share screen, and screen number 1, and the share button. Aha. Okay, but you all are over here. I'm going to try to move you guys over there. Okay. Cool. I think you're hopefully seeing my screen.
Yeah.
Excellent. Nice. So just again, as Shrikant mentioned, this kind of all started as part of our hackathon. A small team of us got together. We find out. I don't know if we're going to officially win the hackathon. There's the Hack Awards are coming up here, like I think tomorrow. So we'll let you know if we actually won the hackathon for our category. But in general, we had 100 or so people in the community. There's thousands of these hackathon projects. So we did get a lot of love from our community, and we got a lot of views relative. It's a long tail, right? So a lot of projects get only a handful of views. So I think we had a pretty good showing. There's a lot of excitement around this because primarily OpenLineage gives Purview these hooks into so many other things, and especially around Databricks. That's the big one around Databricks and Spark in general. So what did we end up actually doing, right? So number one, we were able to integrate using the OpenLineage Spark integration. It took me like half an hour really to get it all hooked up into Azure Databricks with OpenLineage. And I think that just is the testament to what you guys were able to accomplish with that the OpenLineage Spark listener. So again, amazing kudos to you guys. It was so easy to get started that when Mark and I first started planning the hackathon, we were like, yeah, the first few days are going to be just making sure we can get the integration done. No, we were able to get moving very, very quickly instead. So that was super easy to get started. And as soon as we had that plugged in, we were seeing lineage events being emitted out into the log. So awesome. We knew it was happening, but where was it going, right? We weren't going to set up like a Marquez instance, right? Because we wanted to have something even more lightweight so that we could just kind of shuttle this along to Purview, because we didn't need Marquez, the whole infrastructure of Marquez, to move the stuff into Purview. So we ended up using something called Azure Functions, which for the AWS side, it's like AWS Lambda functions, just essentially serverless compute. So pointing the OpenLineage host configuration, we can point to our serverless compute in Azure, and then essentially bring that from Databricks and the emission from OpenLineage down into essentially a message queue, right? That's what we call an event hub. And that essentially is persisting those events for later consumption on, because we wanted to decouple the idea of, at least in our hackathon, decouple the Databricks cluster from Purview, right? We want to be able to, in case there were events that had multiple steps, or we wanted to aggregate results, like Maciej has called out in some GitHub issues, how Delta tables, they actually have multiple events happening, and we wanted to safeguard against that. What if there was something in a 3-minute span or something like that? We wanted to collapse all those events down together. We never really got to that point in the hackathon, but at least we designed for it, right? But no less, we have this flow of extract the information from OpenLineage, gets to this serverless compute, lands it down in this message queue, and then we have to essentially create an adapter for OpenLineage JSON schema into the Atlas entity schema as well. So that was that the second function is all about, is let's transform this. And Mark Taylor on the call did a great job writing a bunch of Python code to adapt the contents from the inputs and outputs of the OpenLineage message, the run information, that namespace information. We were able to take all that together and drop it into Azure Purview, just as this sort of, again, adapter pattern where we were modifying the content and conforming it to Atlas. And so that was, I think that was probably not the hardest part of the exercise, but that was, the majority of our work, because the OpenLineage piece was so easy to just get up and running at that point. We did have a couple challenges with respect to making it, more robust for our, early customers and people we wanted to show it off to. And some of this was around, just how do we kind of automate the process or make it even easier to get the OpenLineage jar into Databricks. And so that came with some collaboration, with a lot of collaboration from the OpenLineage team. We were able to put in a pull request to help create that init script so that we can just quickly go from the most recent jar that's available at OpenLineage and dump it into Databricks at the appropriate place and have then the cluster start be up and running. In addition, for our serverless compute, we have a requirement for, at least one of the requirements for securing it is to be able to pass an API key in the URL parameter itself. And so that's where another PR that you guys thankfully accepted and merged in was being able to carry forward this URL parameter from an OpenLineage configuration in the Spark config settings all the way up to the OpenLineage URI that gets used for every single emit operation. So with that, we've had this awesome set of experiences using OpenLineage and making it very, very easy to use for our customers who want to use it and can leverage our serverless compute to do it. I'd say there's even more to come though, because we're not even done. We've taken the hackathon. We want to start using it with one example customer that Mark is leading here, and we want to extend it even further. So that's where it comes back to how can we get information coming out of Databricks, like the name of the cluster, the name of the file path mounts, right? The information about who ran the particular job, right? How do we extract that information and pass it to OpenLineage as some sort of run, part of the run facet, or perhaps another additional facet? How do we extend it for our other proprietary sources? That's the big question that we're trying to tackle right now. And that becomes a real effort of collaborating with you all to understand, how can we extend our proprietary packages, or how can we write a hook into OpenLineage to extend to our packages that we create using like data source v2 and Synapse. There's a SQL DW relation using the old school logical relation stuff that it seems to be a real pain to deal with. But again, thankfully to Mike Collado and Mache, that they've been very, very helpful on the Teams or the Slack channel and in the community as well. So again, that's been extremely helpful and very easy to get started. And we really, really appreciate your all guidance and insights as we continue to press forward with using OpenLineage inside of Spark to hook into all these other data sources that we want to hook into. So that's all I have to say. I ran through it like really fast, but I would ask Mark if there's anything else that you wanted to add to the conversation, or Srikanth, if there's any other closing note you want to add.
Not from my side. That was good. Thank you, Will.
Thanks,
There's
Mark.
just one thing that wanted to kind of highlight here is that our motivation in going this route is we didn't want to be dependent on, say, for example, a particular catalog API. For example, if you take Databricks today, they put a lot of emphasis on their Unity catalog, etc. But what we wanted to be able to do is to be able to go to the core in Spark. So regardless of whether they're running just Spark in Azure Kubernetes or EKS and or maybe even on-prem customers are running Spark, we want to be able to get that lineage uniformly, independent of the flavor of Spark that they're using. So eventually, our customers may also be using Synapse Spark. So we want to be able to go to the core of this and get this harvested from Spark. So this seemed like a really a foundational kind of approach to do that, rather than rely on a particular flavor of Spark's APIs to be able to do it. So that's one of our motivations here, and we hope to do the same thing with other things like Airflow or DBT or other. As the community evolves, we want to be able to contribute and also partake of those items.
That's all we got, Julien.
Great. So I'll take over the.
Please, yeah. The stop sharing is the next button. It's gonna be. Okay, I see pause share, stop share. Beautiful. There we go. Got it now.
Just one small thing I wanted to kind of note here for the community. So we have within Microsoft, we have a pretty active open source program office. And they run this, what they call a FOSS award program, free and open source software award program, which offers like a whole bunch of Azure credits for these projects. I've nominated OpenLineage in there, so we should know in a couple of months whether we make that grant. So that comes with, if I remember correctly, around $10,000 worth of Azure credits for the project. So hopefully we'll get that good news over the next quarter or so in terms of being able to leverage that for this community.
Yeah, thank you very much. And this is already exciting. It's been, you know, Will, you are really nice to us, but also it's been a pleasure to collaborate with you all. I think Will, Mark, and the rest of the team, you're a pleasure to collaborate with. So it helps too.
Well, thank you guys again. You've made it so easy to get started, and this community has been extremely collaborative and positive, right? It's really easy to be a jerk on the internet when somebody's asking you a bunch of questions. So this community is an exception to that. What I thought was a rule on internet forums, right? But no, you guys are certainly an exception to that. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. So is there any more questions on this from folks in the room?
Thanks, guys. Maybe one technical question about
Please,
this stuff related to those delta events, right? Do I understand correctly that you maybe not implemented, but want to solve the problem by doing some aggregation or filtering server side, right? Not on the client level or integration level.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Maciej. I think I would put it this way: like, I would respect the manifesto of OpenLineage and how you guys are all about like the run level, about the operation level. And I totally understand that, and we wouldn't expect you guys to change and to do additional processing, right? Because that processing may occur at any point in time, right? It might be within 3 minutes or an hour from now as that job finishes operating. So personally, I would not expect OpenLineage to do that, and we would expect to, using whatever client code is saying, hey, we know the business rules for a merge operation. It produces 7 jobs, but they all get produced within 5 minutes of each other, and we just build that into our latency of saying, yeah, it's going to be, it's not real time. It's not going to be real time lineage information, but from the Purview side, because we're going to wait for that aggregation, right? If we need to get down to level, or to your point, we might just filter out stuff. There are events in there that you've posted out there on GitHub that are like, it's not useful to us, right? It doesn't have the same inputs and outputs that we really care about as truly, the data source from blob storage or data lake into a SQL table, right? It just doesn't have that information. So maybe we just don't care about some of the components that are coming out. Does that help?
Yeah. One thing maybe to think about is there a need to have like some generic infrastructure on the filtering side to say, hey, there is this, firehouse of things that come in, but a particular, listener on the other side can write whatever filters they want, and we have some patterns for those, if that makes sense. Because, every consumer of this on the other side might have different needs around what types of events they want to watch for in terms of subscriptions, right? If there's some kind of a model that says, hey, these things are what we want to filter on or aggregate on, or providing some infrastructure support for that would be really good.
Yeah, and I was going to say that like it's not just you guys that want to filter out those things, right? Like so we talked about how like when you are expanding like the directories and the DBFS onto the Databricks interface, right? Like that triggers a bunch of jobs.
Yeah.
That's really not useful for probably anybody. But it's so we do. I think it would be a really good idea to add filtering capability. Without being super prescriptive about what gets filtered, but giving a lot of flexibility to consumers. I think having some reasonable defaults about what we filter out makes a lot of sense. So that way, most people will just not get those file listing events as they happen. But then if people need to add more, or if they really want those file listing events for whatever reason, right, like they have the ability to just change the filter rules.
I love that.
It'd be something that if it can be made configurable, that'll be fantastic, and then that can be based on a particular connector. In terms of what you want to do with it on the other end.
Chandru, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to By the way, my name is Chandru. For folks who don't know, I'm one of the product PMs from Azure Purview. One quick call out I want to make is the journey we are starting is with Databricks, because that's where we have heard a lot of requirement and feedback in high priority. But I just don't want to lower the requirement, or I wanted to highlight that we are interested in everything that OpenLineage can connect to, like Snowflake and other sources, and wanted to get those operational aspects of Lineage into Purview easily. So we are interested in anything beyond Databricks as well. I don't want the team to think, okay, this is all about Databricks, and that's about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, one more question. So maybe discussion, because I don't remember if you, Srikant or Will, mentioned more data about, let's call it, environment around where the job is executed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it would fit inside our current event structure, but it's definitely very useful, right? To have this stuff. And I think we need to have some ideas on how to get this data or connect to this data from other sources, or just know on which cluster or workspace your Databricks jobs run. This is
I think it would probably be a run facet. Like it's either a run or a job facet, depending if it's something that's kind of very stable for a given job, or it might change every run. It's probably a run facet. I think the cluster at which it's running, or kind of the workspace or things like that.
Yeah,
how the resources were consumed, or I don't know, like those kind of things.
Yeah, there could be other things, right? For example, if there is some kind of tagging or other things that we want to get from that environment, right? So a generic way to kind of inject additional properties from that environment into the Lineage events would be really good. So that way, for a particular connector, you can augment that with whatever environmental needs are might be there. So for example, in the future, if we have like a common classification structure, maybe pulling some of those classifications as part of the Lineage would be very useful for us in terms of downstream, propagating those to whatever other things that we have cooking on the other end of the pipeline.
Yeah, so I think all it boils down to is adding a schema for a run facet that describe that kind of metadata you want to add, and as long as you can collect it, it can be defined.
I think, and yeah, I think the run makes the most sense, because while a given job may, represented as like a Spark notebook, or in Databricks, they literally have the job mechanism, but the actual cluster or the user or this information is going to be different perhaps on every single run, right? And you could move that job between clusters perhaps, and those clusters may have a different configuration potentially, especially in the early stages of that experimenting to say, oh, is this a memory intensive? Is this a cores intensive operation? Then yeah, that'd be really cool to include there. One of the challenges I think that we see, or at least are experiencing, is that knowing that right extension point, right? Because and we've talked to Mike about this, Collado, and it's just like, where do we extend in, right? Because right now, if we do something like that, we're gonna have like a Boolean flag that says, is this a Databricks cluster, right? And not just some nice clean little jar that we attach to and say, yep, oh, now that I see this other callback exists or something like that, or Mike had such pretty words for it the last time we talked about how to describe exactly what it is. But it'd be super cool to be able to just tack on something like that, and then have it automatically add those facets from that system, because I can create the code, right, for Databricks or for Synapse Spark or for whatever other compute layer that we can think of in Azure, And then if that jar existed and it could just be called and populate that run facet, that'd be super, in my opinion. And I'd love to be able to make it that easy if it were possible, but just not a good enough Java developer to do that.
I think what you're describing is right? We just need to make it happen.
Yeah. And that's where, again, I linked to it on the slide, issue 181, having that extensibility of being able to tack on these other proprietary data sources. Like we have BigQuery right now, but having some way, again, to just drop in, a Microsoft stack jar, right, where we've created all of these other node visitors within there. And same thing for Airflow integration, right? For I don't know, maybe that's probably the easiest one, but for other integrations, we'd love to be able to, again, we can write the jar if we can just follow your interface and then just tack it on to the installation where OpenLineage is, and it just starts consuming those events. Like that's pie in the sky ideal for us, and it would make our lives as contributors for our platform a lot easier, I think. But we're having fun, is what I want to say, though. It's just to be clear, we're having a lot of fun with OpenLineage so far, and again, appreciate you guys for accepting the pull requests and for, again, helping us shape and work our way through a lot of this as well.
Yeah, I do think that at some point, we've talked before about the ability to link data sets together. And I think that that's going to become a major requirement, just because, like, while I do think that a lot of the environment information is accessible from like the Spark library, it may not all be, right? So, like the DBFS mounts on your cluster are a really great example, right? From the Spark cluster point of view, it looks like a file system database data set. And so having the ability to like, send that link and say, hey, if this cluster is accessing this mount point, it's actually a pointer to this location in, Azure Blob Store or in GCS or whatever, right? And it's a similar issue with Google's what's their SQL server?
BigQuery?
No, not the Cloud SQL. Google's Cloud SQL, because like with Google Cloud SQL, you always connect to a proxy that runs on the local machine, and the proxy is what actually connects to Cloud SQL. But so from your JDBC URL perspective, you're connecting to localhost. And in reality, you're connecting to a Cloud SQL database somewhere else. But it may be the case, like we can write a bunch of extra code in the Spark library to like scan the environment and say, are we running in GCP? Are we running in Azure? Are we running in AWS? What are the, and then have all of these kind of if else conditions to try to find this information. But that's really going to clutter up that Spark code. And so having the ability to just like post this information outside of that library and then let the Spark library be fairly dumb and say, yes, we connected to localhost port 5432. And then like having the backend know that actually on this cluster, localhost 5432 maps to this Cloud SQL database way over here. So I think that that's going to come. I don't know how soon and how important it is right now, but I do think eventually that's the way we're going to have to go.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Well, again, thank you all. If there's no other questions, again, big shout out to, again, Maciej and Mike for all the help. I know you guys have other things to do other than reply to Will and Mark on Slack. So thank you for doing that. And
Will might have froze.
Hopefully everyone is having.
I froze.
Yeah, you froze, Mark. Come on. But again, thank you guys so much. And we're going to continue to working on this. We'll keep you in the loop as things progress. You'll hear us crying on the Slack channel for your help some more. Thanks for always giving it. Appreciate it, guys.
You're welcome.
And we'll be happy to see more of your PRs.
Yes. Okay.
And questions.
And thank you for your contributions, and thank you for presenting your work today.
Of course. Thanks for the opportunity to do so.
Hey, Julien, just a very quick question before we move to the next topic. I don't know if this is already something that you guys are thinking about, but if there's like additional, say, for example, business type of metadata, is it something that you think is within the charter of OpenLineage to augment that in addition to the technical and operational metadata that you capture today?
There is a ticket open, I think, like for being able to state metadata about a data set, say, for example, outside of a run. So we have a ticket open. We haven't made progress yet because like the typical use case is someone is scanning all the data set that exist and want to send metadata about it. So there is a ticket open. So basically to send data set facets outside of a run, or things like who's the owner of, like where's the
additional, that's what I meant, the additional metadata, like if there's any sort of classifications, or they want to add some additional business annotations or something that pertain to that data set, that might be an input, output, or even a process within.
Yeah, so we can add those as dataset facets, and we've been discussing, I think there are a bunch of cases where you want to still be able to collect dataset metadata, even if you're not in the context of a run, right? Yep. So there's an issue open on the OpenLineage repo for this. So if you have opinions on how it should be done or some of that things, you're welcome to send that. So we were thinking of, basically we have run events and of having just simple dataset metadata events that is a dataset with dataset facets.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a look at that one. So, and if this, if there are things that we can suggest on our end based on what some of the challenges we see with, being able to capture that in other environments, would be good input for the community here.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, so for the next topic, I have just a simple topic. So I think as people, there's a common use case of people investigating OpenLineage and kind of looking at what's available in the facets. So of course you can use Marquez as a consumer and use Marquez to look at what's in the facet you collected, and Marquez will give you some navigation and let you look at the facets. But I think a common use case that people are asking for is being able to also forward those to a logger aggregator, like things like could be Datadog or Splunk or an Elk stack or whatever people use to search and index structured logs. And OpenLineage kind of can fit in that category as well. So one thing that has been suggested is as on top of the HTTP endpoint, having the ability to send OpenLineage event as basically just log events to a standard OpenTelemetry backend or something similar, so that people can just, when they're investigating or looking at how OpenLineage works and how to consume it, they can plug that, send it to their logging stack, and start logging at what's happening. So it's just a small topic. So
a question then.
Yeah.
The proxy backend is designed to allow different things to plug in. Is this in addition, or I would say if we did it for the client side, we should also do it for the proxy backend. But the question is, do we need it for the client side if we extend the proxy backend?
I think I would probably put it in the proxy backend first. I think like the proxy backend is a good way, people, you don't want to have to configure every single of your integration, right? If you have a Spark integration and an Airflow integration. So proxy backend is a good way to be the distribution mechanism. Like you point everything to a proxy backend instance, and then you can configure the proxy backend if you want to do the distribution to multiple endpoints. Like, you could have Marquez and Purview and Datakin and a logger, and you want to send events to all of those things. So I think it's a great way to have a centralized place to control that. So I would say it's possible that people might want to have it in the client as well, but I think we should put it in proxy backend first if I had to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
Any other opinions on this?
So one quick question. So Mandy, would some of the filtering functions also make sense to have in the proxy backend? Because that is the ultimate filter that pushes things out, right?
Yeah, I agree. You certainly could. I mean, so Willie did the base definition, and he designed it so that yeah, literally you register different listeners and you use the configuration to control it. So you could also say, you know, I only want jobs that begin XYZ to go out to this particular piece. So yes, I think that's a good place to control it.
Any other opinions on this?
Was the use case that you encountered more like exploration of OpenLineage and like development? Because in this case, having low overhead, so being able to just run it just with the client makes more sense, I think. But yeah, it depends on what's the use case.
I think, yeah, there's multiple. You're right. So I think one of the use cases is definitely experimentation, right? It's kind of, you want to look at what type of metadata you can collect or do some analysis on how many type of operators people are using, or what type of Spark jobs they're running, or doing things like that, and do kind of more raw analysis on the lineage event. So it depends if you're doing like an investigation as like, oh, you're looking at OpenLineage as a developer and you just use a client with some setup and you investigate yourself, then maybe the client makes sense in that sense. But if you have an existing setup where people are consuming, you consume OpenLineage somewhere, right? And you want to reroute those things also that come from multiple sources to a logging backend, then I think the proxy backend is the right place to do that, right? Because you have a centralized place where you can say, hey, I'm going to distribute those events to multiple things, including my logging backend. So this is the thinking here. So we have like 2 minutes left on the meeting. So what I'm going to do is open a ticket for that. And I think we can discuss. The two things make sense, in my opinion, and then we just need to make sure we have a relatively clean way that it's not confusing to have multiple places where you can do the same thing in OpenLineage, and it's relatively lightweight. So I'll open a ticket for this, and I think we can follow up on the ticket and have more asynchronous discussion. Oh, by the way, my PR for the example proposal design doc, like, so the proposal was merged. So now we have kind of an official way of doing design doc proposal for things that require design doc. So we can look into that for this. Yeah, so, and on this, I think that concludes this meeting. And so, yeah, if you want, there's a link. So I'd send the link to the slides as part of publishing the notes. And there's a link on the roadmap. And we didn't have any extra topics today. So we're done with the open discussion. Any last words before we hang up?
One quick question. So the PRs that we merged from the Microsoft side, will those be in 0.4 or which version will they show up, Julien?
Yeah, what has been merged will be in 0.4. Yes.
Right. So
and we're doing a release like very soon, because there's a DBT breaking change that we need to address. So the release 0.4 has slipped a bit. So sorry about that. We've been for reasons, but there's going to be a 0.4 release very soon.
Okay, perfect. So because we, when we talk about these accelerators to our customers, we want to make sure we have a baseline version of OpenLineage that we can tell them which has this functionality, and we can make that dependency on the the base version that is compatible, rather than have to hand roll patches on top to be able to do that.
Yes, yes, that's correct. So what has been merged will be in the next release for sure. And if you need another release shortly after that, because there's another PR that gets merged, this can be accommodated.
Perfect.
And I can make sure like the timelines align.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll publish the notes later today after I clean them up. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.